teen pregnancy. Another thing we just straight ain't gonna talk about in church is teen pregnancy. I was at one of my visiting churches the other day, and one of the young girls was telling me about her brother, brother 15 or 16, and got some little girl pregnant, and she was saying, why we just can't be taught this at church? Because it's sad that a lot of parents don't want to talk about it. And you know one thing that I hate to see is when a young teenager become pregnant and the mother kicks them out. And 9 times out of 10, the mother got pregnant at an early age. And they just disown their child. So mad at them that they just kick them out the house and don't want nothing to do with them when they turned around and made the same mistake. They made the same mistake that their daughter made. And one thing for sure is, teaches us that 25-30% of teenagers now that don't wear condoms or birth control pills become pregnant. And you got more oral sex going on with teenagers than anything. When you look at this and break it down, there's a lot of teenagers that haven't had sex, but they haven't oral sex. And we don't want to talk about none of these things in church. And this is what's going on. Sex is the happening thing. Sex and drugs is the happening thing. And we don't talk about neither in the church. I don't know why. Because this world is exposed with all of that mess. Because times are so different now. I was looking at my boy T-My video when he was interviewing one of his father figures growing up, and they, just talking about the difference between how you stayed when you got married back in the day and stayed married, and you took your vows for better or for worse, and they stayed married. Now we have children out of wedlock, and we have the abortion rate just steady going higher and higher. And this thing is going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. And we as people got the nerve to don't even want to address the issues or talk about them. And it's sad because some of these children are so lost and they looking for help. Sometimes I wonder, what do you even go to church for? We want to just be so holding down and talk about certain things, holding down and judging. But the average teenager sitting in most of these churches are pregnant or already had a baby. That's why when a child has a baby and becomes pregnant, you got babies having babies and the first thing they think of is abortion. I don't want to keep it. Then they be so ashamed. A lot of young women are so ashamed of getting pregnant. They feel there is nobody to turn to, and we don't even try to open up the conversation to the children. Oh man, see, sex is the happening thing right now. Drugs. Look at all these drugs out. You hear about this thing called cheese. You got the X pills. You got so many different drugs out there, and people are dying behind. And there's so many drugs in the house. And here's another problem that a lot of parents don't think about when they do this, and I'm not to talk about nobody and tell them they're a bad parent, but you got children now, got $400, $500 cell phones. And when you ain't around these children, they steady texting. And you're looking at what's going on, they texting and they snapping pictures of themselves naked. And we ain't even thinking about that. I got to get my baby a phone, and then your baby got that phone, and she is steady taking naked pictures of her body, sending it to some boy. Next thing you know, it's all over the school. Next thing you know, your baby is so embarrassed, and some kids are so embarrassed they be ready to kill themselves. That's why I always like to keep it real. We ain't gonna talk about it in church. We can talk about it on here. There are so many things we can do to help our children. Our children are in great pain and suffering right now. I'm so sick of the older people saying, "Oh, you ain't going through nothing." Yeah, I mean, the young kids are going through something, and it is your job as the older folks to let them know and show them the way. It's bad enough. Look like 70% or 60% of the fathers ain't in the house. So you got a lot of little young women running wild, and you got a lot of young boys running wild. Sex just walk up to you nowadays. You ain't even got to ask to get none. It'll just come up to you. Everybody having oral sex. See, people don't want to talk about it, but see, I'm like Bernie Mac. Once again, I stand up and talk about what people are scared to talk about. You got more oral sex going on nowadays than you can't even go to the movie theaters without sex and oral sex in the back of the movie theaters. You think I'm lying? Go sit up high. So many people having sex in the movies, having oral sex in the movies. You see condoms laying all around in the movie theater. And we got the nerve, don't even want to talk about sex in our own homes. We don't want to pray in the house. We don't want to talk about God in the house. And we don't want to talk about sex in the house. So these children going out in the world. Little children love to open up. But see, so many people are so judgmental. They don't want to have that talk with their child. See, one thing about us growing up, I said this in the other video, my mama gave me some of the best advice. Dad already said what he was going to say. You on your own. But mama said, ain't no need for me to try to stop y'all from having sex. Because she said, that's impossible. I can't watch y'all all day, and I'm not going to try. She said, but I will tell y'all this. There are some condoms. She said, don't bring none of them girls home pregnant. And if you do, take care of your responsibility. See, my big bro always wanted kids young. He wanted a kid when he was 15, 16 years old. And his son was born in 96. He always wanted a son. He couldn't wait. Didn't want to wait to get married. He always wanted a son. And when his son came into the world, my mama never once went bad on my brother. She didn't. My daddy didn't either. We accepted the fact that a child is here, because a child is a blessing. And we don't even want to teach the children that the child is a blessing. Don't matter that the sin has been done. The sin has been done. You can't take that back. You have brought a life into the world, and the first thing we do is abortion. Abortion rate is sky high. So many children done died and they have a chance in life. Could have been, ain't no telling what the child was going to be, but they never had a chance. And we got the nerve to not want to talk about sex. And to all the young people, I just want to encourage y'all, and you know, we all went through this process. But situations and times now it's worse and worse. You got so many diseases out now. See, these diseases out now, man, are uncurable. We don't even know what half of these diseases are. And you got a lot of STDs out. You got herpes. Ain't no cure for herpes. Ain't no cure for that. And people walking around here with AIDS. You got people walking around here giving people AIDS on purpose because they are angry. So they want to get mad and give it to somebody else. Some people with STDs know they got it, and they know they don't supposed to be sleeping around, so they get mad and give it to somebody else. We have to really step up and start talking about this. And people get mad, but people don't want to do nothing about it. I tell any church, and I challenge any church, to talk about these subjects in your church. Don't forget about the young people. Because back in your day, we didn't have birth control, Peter. I'm so sick of people with this stuff. Hell, back in my day, let's forget about what happened back in the day in so many ways. And I mean this in a good way. Let's concentrate on what's going on now. Yeah, we know back in the day they didn't have birth control pills, and you got all of these things out now, and people stayed together. But can we know what the past is. Can we focus on the future right now? Our kids are in trouble. Young men running around here screwing anything. Young women just giving their body up in the heartbeat. It's a lot of fast young women out here waiting to have sex. 14, 15 years old, 13 years old. Some even get pregnant at 12. You know, and we got the nerve that don't want to talk about it. Because we think we are not helped if you ain't sleeping with somebody. I'm telling you, man. It ain't all that what you think it is, young folks. It ain't. It ain't. But we all got to learn through experience. But I'm just here to encourage and lift y'all up and let y'all know you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. That's what we was talking about in the other video, how a lot of the preacher daughters came so wild and freaky. Because a lot of the preachers' parents, they always kept them hid. They couldn't even experience life. They kept them in the house, and all they did was going back to the house, going to church, going to school. Never got a chance to experience nothing. So as they get older, they want to see what these things is all about. Next thing you know, they running wild and they pregnant. And people are always talking about, oh, don't date a preacher kid. But see, you gotta balance out everything in life. That's why relationships is so important with your children. Church family for sure. A lot of children are wanting to hear about this in church. I find out that the average church I see, majority of them, they don't even talk about sex. They don't talk about abortion. They don't talk about how to be protective and put on condoms and try your best not to sleep with nobody. They don't talk about it. Because there are some smart children that listens. All children ain't bad children. Even the ones that got pregnant, them ain't dumb children. They just took a wrong turn, just like we have. We done in our lives. And we always want to say that we want to try to, some parents want to try to be their kid. Try to put themselves all the way in their shoes. Don't you know your children gonna make their mistakes? You can tell them all day long, but they gotta live and learn and make their own mistakes. And you as a parent still gotta be there as a parent and support your child no matter what. So what, they done got pregnant. You gotta focus on what, you gotta focus on the solution and what's done happened. So I say I hate to see mamas throw their daughters out in the street after they done got pregnant. Well, that's your problem. You deal with it, and don't call me. I don't want nothing to do with you. And that time, and you know what? That kind of just gets to me, because I know a lot of women like that. They forgot about how bad they was. And then when their little daughter get pregnant, they got a problem with it. And the mama got pregnant when they was 16, 15 years old. Man. That's why now you see more young grandmas. You 34, 35, you're a grandma now. Some younger than that. Kids are getting pregnant real early. And you forgot that you got pregnant early. And then you want to put your child out and kick them to the curb when they crying out for help and they need you more than ever. Bad enough the church don't want to talk about it, and then the old mamas kick them out. Daddy already ain't around. And that makes it hard on the child. And we don't look at this. Then they got to worry about education. You got teenagers dropping out of school, going to get a job to try to take care of their baby. Their own dreams got to get put on hold. Man, I like what my mama always said. That's why parents don't understand that when your children are born, you got to put your life on hold. That's what my mama always told me. We had to put our life on hold to raise y'all because we couldn't do a whole lot of stuff. Now my mama's having the most fun in her life because all her kids been grown. She don't have to worry about taking care of no kids. She can go do what she want. Now it's just her and dad in the house. My mama loves to get out. Love that about my mama. She said, I had to put my life on hold for y'all. And a lot of parents don't get this. A lot of parents want to try to still do what they do and try to raise their children up. And then get mad at their children. No, you got to balance it out. Your life got to be put on hold for your children. That's why a lot of people don't know how to move forward after their children are gone. Because they done lost the love between one another. You got a husband and a wife that done raised their kids, but they done forgot about loving each other. Now the child done gone and moved out the house. They sit at the house looking at each other crazy because they done lost the fire, what brought them together. That's why as individuals, we got to do our part on both ends. You got to bring that love back. It should have never left in the first place. That's why the Bible teaches us that. See, that's why I keep saying they got mad at me with that video, but that is exactly why your husband comes before your children, your own children. That's why the Bible teaches us that. Because the childs get grown and they move on, now you done lost the love for your husband. Or husband done lost the love for their wife because they done spent 18 years, 17 years raising a child. They done lost their fire between each other. But if you would keep your husband first and love your kids, but keep your husband first because you marry your husband. You ain't marrying your kids. See, I'm kind of trying to teach a little bit right now, young folks. That's why the Bible tells us that a man will leave his mother and cling to his wife. Yeah. You ain't marrying your mama, men, but mama boys. Get up off mama. I know you love your mama, but you ain't marrying your mama. You marrying your wife. You got to leave mama. Mama should understand if mama training you up right. Mama got to let go. There's too many mama boys walking around her. There's too many young boys walking around her sissified because they being babied too much. And I mean that in a good way. So I just wanted to just kind of talk about this a little bit. We need to start talking about this teenagers' pregnancy and sex. We need to talk about this stuff in these churches. I challenge any church to just have nights with their children. That's why the youth department is so important. And what's so sad, I just got to say this the real way, and in a lot of these churches, the people that's over the youth department ain't right. We see this with our own eyes every day. They ain't right. And they training the children up right, the ones that's trying to do it right. You got women in the church that got 2 or 3 babies and ain't married, and them the ones that be over the youth department teaching them, and the young youth looking at them like, you got 3 babies, you don't have no husband. You went out and did it, so why can't I? And I'm not talking bad about women with no husband or no boyfriend. I'm just saying we got to watch what we put in position, because you got to watch what you put in position, because you got younger examples looking up to it. And then we got the nerve to put the homosexual man over the youth. I'm just being real, y'all. I'm not talking bad about gays, lesbians. I'm not talking bad about nobody. But this is what we do in church. So that's why you got so many young men coming up confused. I see this on the news all the time. Even when we saw about priests molesting little boys, and this is what you putting over the youth department. You gotta watch who you put in position. So we need to bring this back in church. That's what I loved about my home church, North Park Missionary Baptist Church. We talked about everything. And you know what, to this day, I've never forgotten nothing that they taught us. Because we used to have retreats. How many of y'all know about retreats? Lock-in, see? We used to have retreats with the men where we would go over somebody's house and we would talk. We would spend that whole weekend. We would go out and bowl as men in fellowship. Real men. We would talk about sex. We would talk about the Bible. That stuff helped me. That's why I am the man I am to this day. And with God being the head of my life. I remember everything we was taught, because as a youngster, I started catching on quick. I said, this stuff is so helpful. But we don't even see this in church no more about retreats. Men getting the men, and the women having women retreats, taking the young women and having little classes and talking about sex. See, we don't even do this kind of stuff no more. But you know what? The world will teach them. And I'm gone on that.